What's up, world? Look at where I'm at. I'm at an abandoned house. An abandoned wooden house. It's crazy. I'm getting the spirit of Halloween. Look at the theme. I'm living my dreams. Cream, cream. I used to serve fiends. They suffering from withdrawals like they on lean. The only person I can lean on is me. I can freestyle for real. But the name of this is called Judgment Day. They tell you not to judge a book by its cover. I judge every cover. Yeah. If you don't judge anybody off of face value in their presentation, you'll be lost. So I suggest that everybody out there in the world, anybody that you're dealing with, you better judge a person. Judge a person by how they look, the things that they wear, and the way that they act. So, the first victim, the chameleon, he always changes. Wherever he goes, he changes. He goes where the wind blows. So, yeah. You know, the chameleon. While staying in Connecticut, there's a plane passing by. While I was in Connecticut, I was with the chameleon, and we spent time together. You know, he is my best friend, so we hung out a lot. When I first moved from New York to Connecticut, I wasn't driving yet. So when I was with him, he would ask me if I wanted to come with him places and hang out. So I'm like, fine, you know. So it was a situation where we was riding around. I believe we probably went to the mall. That's a place we used to frequent often. So there were people in the street. It was raining on that day. And it was a big puddle we were driving past. And he intentionally drives in the puddle and splashes these folks. And thought it was funny. And he looked at me for a reaction. I didn't smile at him. I didn't think that was funny at all. What's funny about that? So this guy had a flawed character. He's not honorable. He's not commendable. He's not respectable. He always thought that people who had less than him or who are less fortunate, you know, the have-nots, he thought that was funny. And that wasn't the first situation where he thought that something like that was funny. That's not comedy. That's pain. I don't laugh at people's pain. I have my own pain. So I'm not going to see somebody go through something and be like, okay, yeah, that's funny. But now, for the people who have done me wrong in my past, if something happens to them, then they deserve it. So, but that's a different, you know, story, and I'm going off topic. But yeah, you had this guy who thought that situation was funny. And he will always cause commotion over, you know, people using him for rides. But once again, you have the authority over yourself to say yes or no. So we all have a choice. When people ask him for these things, he could have said no. But he, you know, made a gripe. He complained, and he still continued to do so. And he would, pick people up and then not tell them that he's not gonna, you know, drop them off. So, he would basically pick people up, drop people off at places, and leave them abandoned. You know, so that was another sign that I should have paid attention to, because I knew if I did that to my homeboys and I was driving, and we didn't have that discussion like, okay, I'm not gonna pick you up, or you have to find a way to get home. If you didn't say that, then it'll be understood. But he would just leave people out there stranded and didn't have a sense of communication. So, he thought that was comedy too. And what was another situation? There's so many situations with this guy. Especially with those car rides. And I'll get to a situation where things got physical, not between him and I, but he was at the mall with his girlfriend, and there was a guy at an apartment complex that they came across, and this guy, I'm gonna call him LeBron because his hairline was up here, like up here, like receding. So, hey, we call him LeBron. So, we used to play ball with him a lot too at the gym. So this guy approached him and his girlfriend and attempted to holler at his woman while he was there. And it's like, where's the respect at? So see, all those things that, he was doing was, biting him his ass. Karma exists to me, so I guess that was payback, universal payback. So he told me about the situation. I'm like, what did you do? And he said he didn't do anything. I'm like, man, look, I would have said like, yo, you gotta chill out with all that. You ain't gonna, overrule me and think that it's okay to do what you're doing. And then he came across him again, and we were playing ball. So I'm like, yo, are you gonna do something about that? Are you gonna confront him? Are you gonna say something? And he's just nervous, which is okay. It's okay to be nervous. So after that, this guy LeBron, he's from the Bronx too. He's from Gun Hill. So we had a familiar, background, and we had our conversations. And he was like, "Yo, why you hanging out with this pussy nigga?" I'm like, "Yo, damn." I'm like, you see, yo, that's how God works. Because, see, he was telling me the real. See, somebody who's a coward, their flaws are going to show. And then somebody who's authentic, similar to me, is going to point it out. And see, I feel like that's how God works. He's going to use other vessels to reveal something to you. So, yeah, I feel like that's what that was. And he's like, yo, why you hanging with him? And I'm like, man, we just chilling, we playing ball. He's like, man, come on, shot. I'm like, shit. Hey, man, that ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm my own man. I'm going to hold my own. So, but don't ever think that you're a reflection of who you hang out with. Even though you may not be on what they're on, but, it'll affect you. The things that people do around you will affect you. So he, said what he said. And I told him, I'm like, yo, I told the chameleon, I'm like, yo, he said this. He's like, oh, yeah? I'm like, yeah. What are you going to do? Nothing, He didn't say that, but he was just quiet. So I'm like, yo, how about you just square this away? How about y'all just fight and be grown men about it? Talk about it. If y'all want to fight, y'all fight, and then leave it alone. Just dead it. So I'm like, yeah, let's do that. But that didn't happen. It's crazy how that outcome was way different. So I told him what happened, and then we just sitting in the gym, but there's this medium where, it's a soccer, a foosball table, and we just chilling, chopping it up. And then he just talking crazy, like disrespecting and talking shit. And then the next thing you know, like I said, LeBron, he likes to talk shit. So he was talking crazy to the Chameleon, and LeBron just snuck him. And the Chameleon has his phone in his hand. I'm like, why you got your phone in your hand? He looking down while he's talking crazy to him. And then he sneaks him. Once again, if you're in the middle of combat, you should be paying attention to your surroundings. He had no awareness, and he got snuck. Luckily, he didn't get knocked out, because he didn't hit him with no power. And it's crazy, LeBron was thick, like he was a big dude. So you would have thought he would have knocked him out. I would have knocked him out, shit. But, he hit him, and then they was fighting, tussling back and forth. And they just, grabbing and hugging on each other, and then they ended up in the bathroom. I don't know how that happened. And, his cousin was there, LeBron's cousin was there, and he went in the bathroom, followed up. And I followed up, just to make sure nobody got jumped on. And then we just pulled them apart, and we kept it pushing, And I guess they had some type of respect for each other after that. Whoop-de-doo, Yeah, so I'm like, man, he was afraid to, fight. And that's okay, because we don't know how fights can end. But back then it was clean. It was in a situation where everything would have been fine. And then it was another fight, one of my friends at the time, somebody robbed him for $10. He planned to purchase something, and they didn't give it to him. And he told me about it. So I'm like, okay, let's go over there and handle it. That's what I was on. So we go over there. We see the guy. He just happened to be outside. It was crazy. I'm like, yo, I was telling him, yo, I need to speak to you. I need to talk. And then he just started running. So I'm like, nah, I'm gonna chase you. So I started chasing him, and he's yelling and screaming. So that alerted somebody in the house that he was staying in, and they came outside. So there's about like 5 or 6 other people that followed up outside on his call. So we outside, and I'm discussing what's going on. And I tell one of the people, he's a short dude, he was like 5 feet. He was like, like what's going on? He being rowdy and shit. I'm like, look, one of your friends robbed mine. We just went out money, and, we need to just, square that away and we'll leave. And here's where I was wrong at. I'm sitting here putting myself in a compromising bind because of $10. Like, does anybody realize how ridiculous that sounds? Over $10? I could make $10 just stepping outside. Like, that $10, what is that? Man, that's a little bit of gas money. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's fucking crazy. But when you're young, you don't really, conceptualize things the way you should. So, yeah, I put my life on the line for $10. I was a crash dump. Yes, indeed. So, I did that, and I was explaining the situation. Like, we just went out money, we want to leave. That's it. And he was like, man, fuck all that, and blah, blah, blah. He just started getting hostile and loud, and I'm like, okay. So from that point, I just swing on him. I hit him with 2 haymakers clean. He's knocked out. He's on the ground. And then from that point, it was some big dude. He was probably in his 40s. Husky-ass, dark-skinned dude. He's straight out of prison. Like Kimbo Slice type shit. Like, nigga eat ramen. That's it. Top ramen is what his diet consists of. You see what I'm saying? A lot of pork. He just looked like he sweat pork and beans. That's the type of shit this dude was on. And he just come behind me and he choked me up. And then the knucklehead I told you about, he came out of nowhere and sidelining him. So I'm like, okay. He helped me in that situation. It was his situation. That was the least you could do. So Chameleon, he's there. And we're tussling, we're fighting, and he's just watching, being a bystander to what's going on. But this guy, he likes to talk a lot. So if you like to talk a lot, at least back it up. He's this tough guy. He likes to talk about guns and fighting. And where's all that shit now? Where's the fighting at? Where are your skills? He didn't implement anything. See, like, if we was playing like a fucking card game like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, he had 0 attack. He had 0 attack. Man, look. Man, I got the bees following me, man. Nature love me, man. Yo, he had 0 attack. So the nigga's weak. He watching what's going on. He ain't got no defense. The nigga he got 0 attack and 0 defense. Yo, he threw my book bag. I had a KD book bag. I was going to Norwalk Community College. And I had a KD book bag. Those shits were popular at the time. And I had a knife in it, you know, because I might need it. So he tossed my book bag. And then the dude that I knocked out, he goes back. He goes back in the house. And he grabs some knife, like a machete, some big ass shit. And he comes back running outside and chasing us. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna fight you. You got it. It's too many of y'all. You know, we're outnumbered. I ain't got no G. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't carrying no G, so I'm like, shit. I'm out of here. So I'm like, yo, let's get up out of here. And, you know, they followed, you know, and we got up out of here. And, you know, it was a chink in his armor, you know. There was a chink in his armor, you know. Yeah. So he's a weak dude. You know, he doesn't have any morals. He doesn't have any, you know, standards. Just a talker, you know. And once again, I'm not knocking anybody if they're not a fighter. If you're not a fighter, then just be yourself. I always suggest that everyone just be themselves. There's nothing wrong with just being a person living. What's wrong with that? I'm not gonna, you know, treat you any differently or judge you because you're just on earth doing what you feel like you need to do. There's nothing wrong with doing the right thing. But yeah, you know, he was easily influenced and he wasn't like that. So, you know, that's another situation. And then there were times where we you know, had business dealings. You know, because like I said, the chameleon guy, he's my best friend, so I put him on. I put him in a situation for him to profit. I needed somebody to delegate to, so I don't have the full responsibility. So I'm like, yo, here, you know, we gonna work together. So I fronted him his first. You know, I put him in a situation where he could just pay me back off that first situation. And then from that point, he could pay me with his own cash. So, you know, I invested in him. And he made it seem like he was thankful at first. But then as, you know, time dwindled and time passed by, he, you know, showed that he wasn't grateful. Because if I'm giving you the best prices, best quality, why would you look for somebody else to buy from? Give you the best prices, best quality. You don't gotta pay for everything. People will be grateful for these prices and just, you know, appreciate it. He seemed like that at first, but after time passed by, you can see with his actions show otherwise. You know? And then on top of that, I put him in a situation to get rich. Why is he trying to charge me to record with him? The money that I gave you allowed you to purchase your equipment to record me, but you're going to charge me to record with you. That's messed up. You see what I'm saying? He's a leech. He always took advantage of people for what they could offer. I am the better artist. I have a great pen. My penmanship is up there, you know. I know that I'm one of the best artists, in my opinion. That's all subjective though, you know. Shit, I could rap, you know, I could sing, I could do everything. So he seen the sauce that I had, and he wanted a piece of that, you know. But yeah, I put this guy in a Audi. You see what I'm saying? I had a Jeep. I put him in an Audi. And I wish this bee would get away from my camera. But see, that's how nature works. You know? And it's crazy. I've never been stung in my life. But see, they're comfortable around me. They don't feel threatened. So, back to what I was saying. He was being greedy. You know, looking for other sources to help him. He tried to branch out. He tried to branch out. And I didn't like that. And then, on top of that, we were going to support one of our partners that we was doing business with, and he had a show at a club. So we saw, we all, dap it up, dap it down, looking good. And while I'm not around, my shorty, she was in the club with me, with my wife. So we in the club, and he approaches her and says, "Oh, you look nice, you looking good," something to that effect. I don't know verbatim what he said, but it was along those lines. And he did that behind my back. So I'm like, oh, word? My shorty told me. I'm like, that's crazy. I didn't expect that from him, So I took note of that. So now I'm just doing my own, analysis, and I'm documenting, I'm gathering information on this clown. So I'm like, okay. And once again, I was the one who put my foot forward in motion for us to do shows. I got us our first show doing the coast to coast. It was a showcase. So, I took the action to do that for us. We was in Brooklyn. And then there was another time we went to Philly. He put in the work for that one. But once again, I opened the door. I always open the door for these things. So I'm taking credit because credit is due. So afterwards, I'm doing shows and all this shit. I'm putting him in good situations, and it's just like he's just gonna use me for what he could use me for. He's just gonna bleed you dry. That nigga was a leech. Once again, I could never see this nigga. I never even say his name. That's how I feel. And once again, we cannot come across each other. I better not ever see you anywhere. And I slashed your tires. I told you that shit too. I lied about it at first. I'm not gonna lie, I lied about it at first because I wanted to save myself. Because if I would have admitted to slashing his tires at that time, he could have had me in prison. So I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna tell you I did that. But yeah, I slashed his tires. And I really wanted to do things worse to him. I really did. But the only reason I didn't do that because I knew that it would backfire on me. Now, if I did something stupid, now my career and anything I want to do in my life, that shit is out the question. You see? I would have to get low. I would have got low to another state, and then I would have to go to a different country in the world. You see what I'm saying? So I didn't want to do that to him. And then at the same time, I would have fought him, but he's not a fighter, so I would have just broke him up, and he had an ailment with his lung. That's what he said. He said he got a punctured lung, so how do I look beating up a handicapped person? So I'm like, I'm not going to touch you. I really wanted to touch him. I really did. Because his actions weren't respectful, So I'm like, okay. After a while, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm watching. I'm peeping how it's going with him. And, I departed from that situation, for the betterment of myself. And his character is flawed. Moral of the story, his character is flawed. He is a leech. He is a snake. You don't deal with those. And when he was around other people, he changed up. We shot our first music videos. These were my songs. I wrote them, and then he created his verses. I wrote the hook, created my verse, and he created his verse. I took him back to my neighborhood, brought him to the Bronx, shot our first video, no worries. And then we did the second video in Connecticut, Jet Blue. And we created that concept together, the Jet Blue. I could admit we created that together. Yeah, but I noticed that, I put him in a good situation and he just continuously took advantage. So I'm like, man, you know what? Let me get up out of here before I hurt somebody. So that's what I did. And, in the middle of that stuff, like when I first got to CT, I was, alternating back and forth between Connecticut and New York. I was staying with that Jamaican dude I told you about. I thought he was my friend, but he wasn't either, because he liked to gossip. I needed a space to stay in because my mother was on bullshit. She was taking her anger and aggression out on me because of her marriage. So I'm like, nah, I can't put up with this. So I'm like, nah, let me get up out of here. And I stayed with him and his girlfriend at the time. And we was living in Frederick Douglass houses on the west side of Harlem. So I was staying there for a little bit. We staying in the P's. You see what I'm saying? That was my first time living in the projects. So I got to see what that experience was like, and it wasn't good. Because these motherfuckers is on Section 8, low income housing basically, subsidized housing, and they didn't have to pay much. Maybe like $100 out the month. And the motherfuckers trying to charge me $300. I'm paying for food, you see what I'm saying? I'm working security, I'm working CVS, overnight. I'm figuring this shit out. But the dude that I was staying with, he put me onto this security gig that I got hired for, but he just stopped going. He stopped showing up. But this motherfucker blowing it down, you see what I'm saying? He's smoking, getting high. I'm smoking too, though. I was smoking around that time, so, hey. But this nigga was consumed in that shit. He was getting high, he was drinking, and he's not providing to the table. And I'm doing little side hustles in the street, making my income, building my connections, and it wasn't righteous, but I had to do what I had to do to put money in my pocket. But yeah, they asking me and they leeching off of me. And the whole time, I'm in the crib, he going to BMCC in Brooklyn, and he, hanging out in his wife's or his girlfriend's dorm. And look, man, I'm gonna lay it all out there. Man, that nigga was filthy. Like, they were living like pigs, yo. Like, they had all type of, garbage in there, like food and shit in the bunks. Like, that shit was funky, and y'all niggas is sleeping in there. I went there one time, a couple times, and that shit crazy, man. That's no way for anybody to live. That's how niggas get sick. You see what I'm saying? So it shows, in the way somebody lives. It shows. So, yeah, I learned my lesson with that too. I'll never live with another man ever in my life. I'd rather be fucking living in this shit. I'd rather be living in a shed if I ain't got no motherfucking space. See, I could break this shit. I could really deck this shit out if I wanted to. That's what I'd rather do than live with another man. I gotta have my own. I need my privacy. I need my space. I need my peace. I need all of that. So, yeah. So, this pipsqueak chameleon, whenever girls were around, he would act funny. And when I first moved to Connecticut, I wasn't in shape. I don't look how I look now. So I was a little heavier, chunkier, I was about 200 pounds, and I had a horrible diet. I ate a lot of processed foods, and my skin care wasn't right. I had psoriasis. I don't have psoriasis anymore, but I did have it. And it creates dry skin. It creates acne. It creates craters in your skin. Like I was looking like a cookie monster at times, and I couldn't control it. I didn't know what to do or how to resolve it. That was very painful. Whoever has psoriasis understands how painful it could be to have that condition. There's times where you really don't even want to go outside. You feel like your appearance is so like diminished. You don't want to go outside and be amongst people and have, conversations. You don't want to. So it makes you isolate. It makes you become, antisocial and an introvert. I was already that way before, but now it just amplifies it. So, yeah, I looked different before, and now I look better. So I feel like as time progressed and I was becoming who I was becoming, he's starting to see, he's like, damn, this is a whole different person. See, like, if you see pictures of me from my past and you look at me now, you would think that I'm a clone. You would really think that. And I am a different person now. And I don't have any shame. I'm in a different mind state. I'm in a different way of thinking. I'm enlightened now. So my core values and principles are still the same, but the way I move is completely different. And I love that. I love who I am now. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah, but this guy, the chameleon dude, he valued materials and wealth and possessions over friendships and relationships. I have pride in my relationships and my friendships that I still have today. But he shitted on people because they didn't have anything. But I put him in situations to, elevate, and then look how that turned out, Yeah. And then, man, while I was in Connecticut, I got cut out there. I got cut with a machete. I had to get like 30 stitches, because I was new to what I was doing, even though I had my background in it. But I was comfortable because I'm in CT. I'm like, oh, nothing gonna happen. I was comfortable. So I'm out there. This fucking African dude. See, look, man, I can't see you, man, because I know you. I know your name. I know your government. Look, I found my father, and he's a piece of shit. So look, man, I'm not gonna apply anything. That's all I could say, because I don't do no talking. Yeah, so I got cut, and it was bad, I had to get like 30 stitches, and I got cut by a machete. He came in the car. I thought he was gonna purchase. He didn't, and he cut me. And he was saying he didn't mean to do it, when I reached for what I was reaching for to, give to him, he probably was scared and thought I would have done something, but nah. When I reached, he cut me, and then after that, I still gave him what he wanted, and then he asked me to drive and drop him off. You could have just hopped out and left. So, you see what I'm saying? It's like you beat at that horse. That's overkill. You didn't have to do that. So I'm sitting here gushing, driving. I'm calm as I could be. And I'm bleeding a lot too, but I'm as calm as I could be. Because it's an adrenaline rush. If you think you're not going to make it, you won't. So, I'm like, man, I'm driving, and I drop him off. Then I had to go back to my crib, and I'm staying with my mother during this time, before I got my own apartment and started moving around and, reaching levels. So, I'm like, man, I had to call my partner, my shorty, had to call her to come down and be like, yo, I need you to drive me to the hospital. And she's like, what the fuck was going on? I'm like, yo, just come downstairs. Can't explain all that. Just come downstairs. So she drove me to the hospital. I got patched up. It took me about a month and a half to 2 months to fully recover from that. And then guess what? I still had to do what I had to do. I'm still in the game, and I'm motherfucking bleeding. And then you know what the messed up part is? This person that did this was close to somebody